Good afternoon, and thank you for joining today. I understand virtual sessions do not provide the personal feel some of us favor. Nonetheless, I appreciate your willingness to participate and wish prosperity and abundance to each of you here today. Let us begin. Hello. My name is Genevieve, and I have been impacted by the conflicting characteristics of social versus market norms.
Hi, Genevieve.
Hello.
Hi, Genevieve.
Do we have anyone here who would like to share today? Gracious acceptance of your desire to share. We thank you.
Thank you.
Ronald, I saw your hand raised first. Please, speak freely.
Hello, my name is Ronald, and I've been impacted by the conflicting characteristics of social versus market norms. The year was 1952. I had just turned 16, and my aunt requested my assistance in helping her and my nieces move apartments downtown. The apartment was on the third floor, requiring multiple trips and down 2 flights of stairs and narrow. Despite the physical difficulty, I was glad to help. It was my aunt, for goodness sakes, you know. And there was a man helping too, some man in his 30s, maybe 40s, and my aunt must have known him from church or something. Anyways, the man worked hard for 10 hours straight, both bent and knelt, lifted, grunted, sweat, moved everything from my aunt and nieces that they owned, from their bed sets down to their last box of crocheted trivets. When it was all said and done, my aunt handed the man a $5 bill, and after he left, and she turned to me, and she placed 50 cents in my left hand.
How did that make you feel, Ronald?
Irritated, honestly. Suddenly I felt as though I was being used. Perhaps the fact that I wasn't family meant my sweat and hard work wasn't worth as much to my aunt. I wish she hadn't given me anything at all. It just would have felt better knowing I was helping just to help, and the man was hired to help. But no, this way there was a $4.50 discrepancy between the man's worth and my own. And it didn't make much sense to me then, and it doesn't make much sense to me now.
Can you try making sense of it, Ronald?
It's like a wolf pack, like perfectly competitive nature, a pack hunting together, ensuring each member gets a rabbit. But then Auntie Wolf invites some outsider wolf into the pack and says, "Go ahead, outsider wolf, take my nephew's rabbit. Make sure to leave him a foot, though."
Doesn't seem that lucky to me. Sorry. Go on, Ronald.
The meat piece tax from the outsider wolf was like dead weight loss. Certainly, I wouldn't think of these things as going against a wild and free market if my aunt hadn't crossed the line of our pack's social behavior. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but that's all I have to say about that. And thank you all for listening.
Received, Ronald.
Ronald.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Your willingness to help your family move apartments was strong, beautiful, and kind. The social norm of a young man doing a favor for his aunt is simple. You didn't have any malfeelings during the 10 hours of working for her, did you?
No, not at all. In fact, I was happy to help and felt productive, accomplished. You know, just a young wolf putting in his share of the pack's workload, and that's it. Right up until the moment when she placed the 50-cent coin in my hand. All of a sudden, my contribution felt wasted.
We'll discuss those feelings more after another share. April, thank you for volunteering. Please, speak freely.
Hello, my name is April, and I've been impacted by the conflicting characteristics of social versus market norms.
Hello, April.
I had an interaction that carried into last week, so I'm still a little raw.
Take your time, April. When the social world collides with the market world, it can be quite difficult. We understand.
Most of you know me by now, my background and where I came from. Money was scarce, and my family shared everything with our neighbors and friends. I'm in a higher tax bracket these days, but I still hold on to my roots of sharing and donating to those in need. Well, my kids are growing fast, so I gave Karen, a friend with kids just a little younger than mine, the clothes that mine have outgrown. Some were super nice too, like with the tag still on them, even name brand. So I knew they'd last a while. The only thing I asked Karen was that she pass the clothes along to another friend or donate them to a local women's shelter when her kids outgrew them.
That sounds very thoughtful of you, April.
Yeah, I thought so too. But just a little while later, I saw Karen selling the clothes that I gave her on Facebook Marketplace.
Did you do or say anything when you found out Karen was selling the clothes?
No, I figured at that point it was no longer my concern. The clothes belonged to her, and she could do with them what she wanted. I was disappointed, sure, but I had made peace with it. But it didn't stop there. A few days later, Karen texted me telling me she sold the clothes and offered to give me half the cash she made.
How did that make you feel?
Well, first, I thought, no way. I don't want the cash. That money should be donated. But then, on the other hand, I thought, why should I only get half the profits? Those were clothes that I originally paid for. I was immediately torn. Not only did I feel gross about Karen's actions, but I felt gross about my reaction. I wish she would have just donated the clothes like I asked, or at least came to me before selling the clothes. We could have found a Nash equilibrium and none of this would have happened. That's all. Thank you.
Received, April. Thank you. Both Ronald and April provided personal and unique experiences of being impacted by the conflicting characteristics of social versus market norms. As we know, social norms are friendly requests people make of one another. They pop up everywhere in our daily lives, wrapped up in our social nature and longing for community. Instant paybacks are not required, and in fact, instant paybacks interfere with the friendly social nature of these requests, causing them to shift into the world of market norms. Does anyone remember what market norms are?
Market norms are exchanges with sharp edges. Prompt comparable benefits or payments are given in exchange for services provided. Basically, you get what you pay for.
That's right. And when we keep social norms and market norms on their separate paths, life goes on quite beautifully, doesn't it?
Sure does.
But when these two worlds collide, like they did in Ronald's and April's experiences, what happens?
Relationships are negatively impacted, trust is lost, people just get plain greedy.
Yeah, and it no longer feels good to help a friend. It feels like a cold transaction.
Thank you, Lauren and Jeremy. Ronald, April, I'm curious to hear whether or not you would have approached these situations differently had you been fully aware of the collision happening between these two worlds.
I assumed we were both on the same social norm page, you know? I thought I made myself clear. I guess if I knew ahead of time there was a possibility of a social market collision, I'd approach the whole situation differently. Like I'd invite Karen over for wine or something to look through the clothes together, and whatever she didn't end up wanting, I'd take back with me to donate the clothes myself.
Thank you, April. Ronald, what about you? Would you have done anything differently?
Yeah, for sure. I would have made sure my aunt and my help was purely voluntary. Family favor requiring, no compensation.
Thank you both for your bravery and sharing today. The more we share, the more comfortable we become with establishing and maintaining boundaries with our friends, family members, co-workers, strangers, and most importantly, with ourselves. It's vital we build awareness in each situation. Am I in a social norm situation or a market norm situation? Is there potential for the two worlds to mix? If so, how will that make me feel? How will I respond? Do I need to communicate additional expectations or boundaries? This week we shared about experiences when we thought we were in the world of social norms and the market norm world crashed into us. Next week, we'll talk about the opposite happening when we're in the world of market norms and the social norm world crashes into us. I encourage you all to think of experiences you may feel comfortable sharing. As always, remember to breathe and listen through each moment of each day. Until next time.
Until next.